Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for tuning back into Just a Recording podcast, where we have conversations with individuals that think differently and challenge the status quo with success and valuable lessons. This week's episode is with a guest that I met on a yacht in Miami sailing to the Bahamas. Yeah, that's right, on a business trip on a yacht sailing to the Bahamas. The most incredible trip we've ever been on. We share stories about how amazing and how insane and bananas that trip was. Shout out to Loud and Live for bringing us on that trip together. And since then, I've been watching this person grow and change and evolve and get smacked in the face with life, but learn and grow from each valuable lesson that she has. And I'm really excited to bring her to you because I think her story is very, very special. And I learned some things that I didn't even know about her, like that she was in the Army. She was born and raised in LA and then moved to Tel Aviv. It's been an incredible story, and I can't wait for you guys to listen to it. Before we get into the episode, what I want you to do is check out our podcast sponsor. That's therootbrands.com/universe. therootbrands.com/universe. Check out their two products that they have, Clean Slate and Zero In. As I've been telling you, I have been taking both those products, and I am just crushing Zero In, and it is a no crash, biohacking, nootropic that I am just in love with. Clean Slate is the other product that just removes all the toxins and the metals from the body, and they're an incredible brand that have grown probably 800% since the beginning of the pandemic. Please go check them out and give them all the support as they have been supporting the podcast. The next thing that I want you to do is go on iTunes and rate and review the podcast. Give me a 5-star rating. Give me some feedback. Let me know how you're enjoying these episodes, and I will continue to bring you some guests that I think you can learn and understand and maybe relate to. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. Drop that beat. Welcome back to Just a Recording podcast. I am your host, Patrick, and I am really excited to bring you this episode with an acquaintance that I crossed paths with many moons ago from a very strange experience, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But I am really excited to talk with this individual because we share a lot of same beliefs in spirituality and expanding your mind and understanding the thoughts of what intuition mean, the importance of breath work, the importance of meditation on a daily ritual, and just supporting humans and everyone around you and being an energy of light and focusing more so on what you can do and changing yourself and starting to change the world with looking at yourself and knowing that when you look to change what it is that you're doing, others around you will start to make that change. And so I'm really excited to bring you a super close friend, Taylor.
Woo!
How are you?
Honestly, I loved that intro. I was like, okay, can I just write that down and put that on my website? Because I think that's pretty much my motto in life.
You can use it for sure.
Yeah, it's a good
so
one.
I like to kick off which with most of my podcasts, I like to kick off like how we know one another. And
oh, it's so good. It's so juicy.
It's so juicy. And so we met on a yacht
In the Bahamas.
Driving
Well,
out of Miami to the Bahamas. And in one of the most epic fashions ever. And this was your first business trip.
Yes, it was.
So a little backstory. So you were so it was your family, right? Was in it was Cbd
Medic.
Cbd Medic, right? I thought it was that, but I didn't want to butcher it. So
yeah, that's okay.
And you were working in sales at the time, I think, right?
No, I was working. I don't even honestly think I had a job title at the point at the time that I got on that trip. I was like the 4th employee of the company, or like the 5th employee. I had been working there for like a few months. I was actually going to quit, and then I was offered to go on this trip to the Bahamas, and I was like, okay, let's just reconsider this. Maybe we should go on this trip before I make my decision. And I ended up staying much longer, not because of the Bahama trip, but
which is bananas
helped.
to think that you were the fourth employee, because there was a massive amount of growth from CBD Medic in that like post 6 month period from that kickoff. So anyway, I was working for a company, philanthropic breast cancer awareness called Barbells for Boobs. And I had no idea what this was going to be. I thought we were going to be in meetings. I didn't even know we were taking a yacht to the Bahamas. I just thought we were going to Miami.
I didn't even know what CrossFit was. I didn't even know what CrossFit was. So
and here we are. So let me paint the picture. So they put us in a hotel. We take a bus to this marina. We are walking on a dock. We have no idea what's going on. And there's probably 8 to 10 professional CrossFit athletes. Like Cody is on there.
Alex Smith, Brooke Wells.
I mean, like some really big names are on these boats.
Funny
and
story.
There's
though.
2 boats. There's 2 yachts.
At the hotel, I just got there. I have no idea what I'm doing there. I don't know what CrossFit is. I have no idea. Nothing. I'm standing at Starbucks and I see Brooke. And I'm like, are you on the trip? Like, what's your name? And she's like, yeah, like, who are you? And I'm like, Taylor, like, I'm here with Cbd Medic, like, not knowing who I'm talking to. I look her up on Instagram, I'm like, oh, she has like almost 1 million followers. I should probably know who she is.
Right.
Yeah. That was my experience the whole week.
So we're walking out on this dock and there's like a crew, there's a captain, and we board this like 70, 80 foot yacht. And you're just like, oh shit.
Yeah.
And then to learn that there's another boat that's driving to the Bahamas with us, which was like a 60 foot, it was like a Egg Harbor, I think, or like a fishing boat, but like probably, close to like 10 to $20 million worth of just yachts on the water. Yeah. And we're just taking them to the Bahamas. And so we get on this boat and the CrossFit community, they kind of know everyone, but I'm just like, what are we doing? What's going on? And we drive to the Bahamas and we just kind of start to get to know one another on this yacht. And so that was like the kickoff. And then we just learned that this was like your first business trip ever that you've been on. And then we just, they had all these events for us. We just partied in the Bahamas. We had maybe like 2 hours worth of meetings. Like we didn't really do a whole lot, but just hang out and party. And, we like floated in the ocean, like off
swam
the back
with
of the
stingrays,
yacht. So you partied a little bit harder than I didn't want to stay on the island, but you guys stayed on that island. It was, you and the rest of the CrossFit team was just kind of there partying with the stingrays and hanging out. I was not able to.
I wouldn't call it partying. We were kind of like stuck there for longer than we would have wanted to. Then there wasn't shade and we were like really suffering, but it was an experience for sure. It was a bonding experience. We got closer on that island.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And then obviously we continued to connect at Wadapalooza and then just getting intertwined. And then CBD Medic really kind of took off. So talk a little bit about what you did post, obviously, that trip, because CBD Medic got into, you guys partnered with Rob Gronkowski.
Yeah,
you guys did a
awesome.
lot of big things. You were in CVS. Yeah. So talk a little bit about that.
I was always more on the creative side of things at CBD Medic. I really walked in. What happened was I studied politics. I was really into politics at a time, which is funny because we just spoke about how I'm trying to avoid those topics these days. But I studied politics, and after I finished my degree, I was like, I'm not going to go the conventional route. I always knew that I was going to listen to my inner voice, let it guide me to where I felt was right for me. I didn't really figure that out so quickly. So I bought a camera and I started to create content on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and talking about my perspective living in Israel. I'm in Israel now currently. Talking about my perspective in Tel Aviv. Yes. Best city ever. If anyone's ever curious and doesn't know if they should visit, for sure, it's a yes, 100%. But what I was saying, I was doing politics, talking about the conflict, and my videos were in months just going viral, millions of views, 800,000 views. I was like really almost famous for being like, I I don't want to use the word Candace Owens because it has a political implication. Yeah. So, but I wasn't right wing. Like I wasn't left wing. I was really just like the face of this independent political voice in Israel. And the guys at Cbd Medic saw my videos. They were like, cool, awesome. They kind of knew about me through a mutual friend. They were like, hey, we need someone to do some marketing. We need someone to do social media. Like, are you in? I was like, okay, yeah, let's give this a try. Let's try the private sector. Let's try making content in the private sphere before I kind of rule that out. And it was a really cool experience. Like in the first few months, I ended up on that trip. And afterwards, I really got to be free to be my own boss and make my own schedule and manage a lot of the content creation. And I got to meet Rob, and I flew to New York and got to manage the social media for that whole launch and everything. I was never into the whole business side of things. I really had like my own little world within the company to just make content, which was so cool and something I'll forever be grateful for. But it also helped me realize that I'm not meant to be in the corporate private life. The second it started to become more corporate and like bosses and hierarchy, I was like, I love the content thing. I don't like the whole someone telling me how to live my life thing. So thank you, but I'm going to move on.
Yeah.
And then I left.
Yeah. You definitely did some cool shit during that period when you were with Cbd Medic for sure. I mean, just that trip that we went on was, I mean, that's probably epic. Like the cherry on top of any type of corporate trip you can go on.
For sure.
So let's take it back, obviously, because I love giving a little backstory about how we know each other and then how we met. Let's take it back, obviously, you know, where you were raised, where you were born, like who you are. Who is Taylor?
Yeah. Okay. Taylor. Well, I was born and raised in LA, in the Valley in Sherman Oaks. And I was always like, I felt like I didn't fit in the Israeli crowd of LA. I felt like a little bit more American because my mom is American. She converted. She's from Connecticut. And in the American crowd, I always felt like I'm more Israeli. And I always like had this like identity crisis. Like, who am I? Where do I belong? It's probably why I have like a very high tendency to not put myself into a box these days, because I just gave up on trying to be in a box. I think it's like the thing I love most about myself is that I could be a little bit of everything. And I had a really hard time like growing up in LA. I felt like I don't fit into this lifestyle that's so superficial and materialistic. And as soon as I finished high school, I decided to volunteer for the Israeli army. So when I was 18, I left LA, moved to Israel. My parents are still in LA. And I joined the IDF, and I was a machine gun instructor, an infantry instructor for 2 years. I was teaching soldiers how to shoot 50 cals. And yeah, it was pretty cool. Yeah, I know.
So you posted a picture of you in army uniform next to like a Humvee like maybe last week. And I was just like, is she just wearing camo and hanging out by an army Humvee, or did she? Because also the Israeli army, if you live in Israel, you have to do 4 years, right?
2 years for girls, 3 years for boys.
Got it. Yes. So you were living in LA, probably a kush life, like having like
I had a Mercedes.
Right. So I mean, your family, your father, I think does construction, right? Like he
does.
Yeah. For a lot of big name celebrities.
Yeah, he's doing well.
Yeah. So you left LA and went to Israel to join the army.
Yes.
Wow.
I did.
So what was that experience like?
I think that was actually, without knowing it, the beginning of my personal development, growth, like path, journey, whatever you want to call it. I think that was when I realized I'm not living for anything bigger than myself. I don't see myself going to college. I don't see myself as part of the system. I need to learn more. I need to seek discomfort. I want to mature and go through some shit to kind of become the person I want to be. And that was just me forcing myself into an environment where I knew it was going to end up with me becoming a better version of myself. And it did. It was the best experience of my life. And there's obviously a lot of controversy around Israel and the Israeli army, but I learned some of the morals that I pride myself in. I learned them in the army, about companionship and leadership and responsibility. And I will never be ashamed of that experience. Like, as much as the political talk around it is very negative. So it was amazing. It was the best experience of my life. I would do it another 20 times.
Yeah,
right
I think what I read this not too long ago, but that in the Israel army, that I think when you're handed your weapon, that like you're given like an oath of like, you have the responsibility now with this weapon. And it's kind of like your own personal ethos of what you believe, that you have the power to, and it's like you choose your own way. You know, you don't have like a general that you obviously have to follow orders, but there's like this manuscript that's like this unwritten code when you're handed your weapon, that you have so much power and you have the ability to choose to use that for good.
For sure. That's what it's all about. Actually, we learn a lot about, you know, setting an example in society whenever you're out in uniform, to kind of be the example of the model citizen. If you're on the bus, to get up for elderly people or for people who, you know, are disabled or anything, it's just to be that model citizen. I think it's something that as rare as as in how like it doesn't really fit American society, but I feel like if Americans were forced to give back to society and to their communities in the way you are in Israel, I think it would really benefit American society. And I see that more and more as things unfold the way they are today. You can see in Israel, even though there's a lot of political turmoil here as well, and we're going through similar problems, you see that there's still a bond between the people that is harder to break, because we have this shared experience and we sacrifice something from our own personal freedom for the greater good, which I think is super healthy.
What'd your parents think when you told them that you were going to enlist?
I was really problematic. I was a really bad student. I was a really bad child. Like, I mean, I don't want to say I'm a bad child, because that's something that that's a limiting belief, but I wasn't a cookie cutter type of kid. I got arrested for stealing from Urban Outfitters once. I was ditching class, D's, barely passed my classes. I was really not on a good path. I was really lost. And my dad knew from experience, because he was raised in Israel. He went to the army, that it would for sure help me. He was like, I wish I could send you a year earlier. And my mom, she always had a love for Israel and appreciation for Israel. She knew why I wanted to go. And my little brother came 3 years later and went into special unit. We're both here. So they're both super supportive of it. Yeah. Wow. They loved it. Yeah.
That's incredible.
Cut up for a second.
What year did you leave LA?
I left LA in 2012 and joined the army that same year.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's also a crazy time to go to Israel and join the army with everything that was going on, obviously in the Middle East.
I served in the last war in Israel. So I actually had a very intense army experience where friends were lost and my life was a little bit more in danger than it would have been in a normal 2-year service. I was on the border of Gaza, training soldiers, reserves. It was really intense. I went to serve for my 4-day service and to come back home on the weekend. And I ended up staying for 36 days with the same backpack, because the war started. And that also put a lot of things into perspective for me. That really helped me appreciate life. And, when I think about getting older, or if I stress about not being in the present, all these things, I really remember the people who lost their lives and that I knew personally, and kind of help that ground me and bring me back to how grateful I am to be alive, even when things are really difficult. So it was a really formative experience. Yeah.
Gosh, that's crazy. Just to even think, one, I think it takes a special someone to enter in the armed forces, let alone, a female. I think it's that's scary. I'd be scared. And I'm 6'4", 200 pounds, so it's for usually sure. Most people are scared of me. So what happened after the army?
So after the army, I'm raised by a very strict father, and I was kind of pushed to start school immediately. Usually people go on a trip around the world a year after the army. They go to India, they go to South America, and I was kind of held back in terms of the college experience. My dad always compared me, to Americans still, and was like, okay, the army's great, but you have to go get a degree. In Israel, people start their first degree at 26. 25, 26. So it's interesting. Today, I see my friends from the Army starting school, and it kind of relieves that pressure that we have in America to like know what you want to do in life at 18 years old, go get your degree, student loans, like the pressure of like changing your opinion and what you want to do in life. Here, you really have freedom to first find yourself through the Army, travel the world, see things, experience things, and then go get a degree based on, you know, a more mature mindset and a place where you're way more prepared to make that decision. So I started immediately because my dad was pretty nervous about me waiting. I studied politics. At first I was shocked. I'd never been a good student, and the Army really changed my perception of myself. I all of a sudden felt capable. I didn't feel like that bad kid anymore. I used to have like really bad behavior problems, and the Army made me feel like, oh, like I got this. Like I can do really impressive things, especially because I didn't know Hebrew. I didn't know how to read and write, and I had to like teach myself how to read and write to teach soldiers all this material on the weapons. Like I really went through an experience there that was, you know, when they say like you die, like a version of yourself dies to become this new version of yourself, I really became this new version of myself. And when I stepped back into the classroom, when I started university, I all of a sudden felt like I was that girl that's stupid, that's a bad kid again. And I freaked out. I was like, I can't do this. Like, I don't know how to study. I'm a bad kid. I'm stupid. I'm not educated. Like I have bad grades. Like teachers hate me. And I was just telling this to a friend recently, like how nervous I would be to raise my hand in class. Like I would be shaking, like hyperventilating just to like raise my hand, thinking I have something to say that's worth listening to. But I ended up pushing through that, and I finished my degree in a really prestigious honors program in my school. And that was a really cool experience for me to feel like I can go from being the worst student and considered the dumbest girl in my class to be someone who's, you know,
excelling,
chosen and excelling. Like it was crazy. I think all of these experiences reminded me or taught me how much you can change, and that it really is up to you. And when your environment's supportive, and when you're in the right mindset, and when you're persistent, then the sky is really the limit. And I forget that sometimes. So I'm actually happy reviewing this is making me feel like I got this.
Right? Yeah. It's exciting. You know, it's so insane. I had the similar experience when I studied as well. I was told as a senior in high school, diagnosed, you know, ADHD, learning disabilities, dyslexic, and was like,
all of the cool people are.
Right. And it was like, you shouldn't go to college. And like my counselor told me that I probably would not be successful in college and I shouldn't go. Mm-hmm. And then I chose to go to college and ended up excelling, made the dean's list every semester, got inducted into an honors program. And so it was like, it's scary how these limiting beliefs, like what you were talking about before, that you could have. And I remember in high school being so nervous and so scared to say anything. And then in college, it was like, I was speaking in front of, you know, the donors and alumnus and,
Same.
you know, just doing so many cool things that just helped expand your mind. And you're like, I can do this. I can do whatever it is that I want to do.
Right.
So Where did you study?
I studied at an international school called IDC. It's a really good school, actually. I loved it.
Where's
it's in Israel.
Okay.
In Israel. Yeah. It's all in English.
Yeah.
But I got to travel. I got to go to China and Belgium and Boston and DC. I actually flew to DC like the week after Trump was elected last time, and we were meeting with Supreme Court judges. I met with Bernie Sanders. I got to really experience what life in being the top of my class on the most bougie level ever. And I had this whole time where I was like, are they sure that I deserve to get into this? Like, did they make a mistake? Like, Am I walking into the Supreme Court right now to meet a Supreme Court judge? Like me, like all my teachers would laugh at me. Like they would say I'm dumb. Like, is this the same person? And those experiences, like they're the evidence that you need when you need to remind yourself to change. But it's interesting now that I'm talking about it, I realize how with time, your limiting beliefs kind of creep back up, and they kind of convince you that you start to like convince yourself that those experiences weren't really as significant as they were, or you start to talk yourself into like, okay, well, that was just college. Like, that's not real life. But it really is all the same. Yeah. And it's just the limiting beliefs are a little bit stronger than those experiences are. So they're coming back. But you gotta.
Right. Or I was lucky, right? I
was lucky. Yeah.
No, it's not.
I was really convincing. I'm charismatic, like all that stuff.
Right. When it really is, no, I worked my fucking ass off. I did what I had to do, and I showed up, and I was different than what everyone else was, and that's why I got chosen.
That too. And we don't give ourselves enough credit for how much easier it would have been to stay in the identity of what we were always told we were.
Right.
Like, it took even more hard work than the girl who got straight A's her whole life, who got into the program,
right?
Who was always told she's great, right? Like, for me, it was like that, the hard work, but also letting myself, have the freedom to break free of those labels and those limiting beliefs, which is the real hard stuff, if you ask me.
Yeah. So what year did you graduate?
I graduated in 2017. It's a 3-year degree. We don't do the general education thing that you guys do in America. Yes. Very efficient here.
So much better. So much better.
Yeah.
All of the things that you're saying about Israel and Tel Aviv and I should have grown up there.
Yeah, right?
Travel.
Right? It's like, go find yourself. Go find yourself before you decide what you're going to do for the rest of your life.
Yeah, it's so crazy to think, in America, as an American, you're just ingrained of like, graduate high school, go to college, figure out who you are, figure out what you're going to do for the rest of your life. Yeah. And that's what you're going to do. If you think like my grandparents were, you go and you choose a job out of high school and you did that for 50 years. And then you got your watch when you retired and you lived off Social Security. It's
crazy.
It's insane to think now where, the new norm. I remember years ago when I would interview, if I saw somebody that bounced around from job to job, I probably wouldn't have hired them because that showed instability. Now I would much more prefer to hire somebody that did bounce around because they have the flexibility to be able to do so many different things. They're way easy to pivot. So that's crazy to think how different society is when you just start at the ground level and really teach kids that they don't have to rush to figure out what it is that they want to do.
I love it. I'm so grateful to have this like alternative, especially because I was raised in the system. Like, wow, we're so lucky here. And people in Israel are like, America, America, America. And I'm like, you don't know, like, you have no idea. Like, they just think like college parties are like the coolest things ever. And and it's they don't understand how lucky they are to have that freedom. And they don't understand the value that the army brings them because it's mandatory. And usually if you're forced to do something, you're kind of left to kind of look at why it sucks.
Right.
Over how amazing it is and how much it offers you and what it gives you. So I was very passionate about that in the army. Like I felt like I was like the Tony Robbins of my soldiers. Every week I'd get a new batch of soldiers and I'd be like, do you know how grateful you are to be here? Do you know how grateful you are to be alive? Like, I really was like, I took on another role. I was like, I'm going to teach you how to shoot this gun, but I'm going to teach you how to love the army. And they'd be like, this girl is crazy. Like, she's not normal.
Oh my gosh, that sounds awesome. So what'd you do post-college?
Post-college, wow. So it's interesting. I was in a nice, beautiful relationship, my first love, and it ended. And I was going to apply to law school in the States. It was always my dad's dream. I was still in this like mindset loop of like pleasing my father, living the life he wants, going straight to school like he asked. And I was fine with that because I didn't really have the need to go find myself in a foreign country. I felt like I gained that by coming to Israel. So I was happy going to school. But I was told since I'm a little girl, you're going to be a lawyer. You have to be a lawyer. You'd be a great lawyer, lawyer. So I was like, okay, I guess I'm going to be a lawyer. And I finished school. I started studying for the LSAT, really like the hardest I've ever studied for anything in my life. And I was going through the breakup. It was really hard for me. And I took the LSAT twice, didn't go well, but it was so much deeper than not doing well in the LSAT for me. It was like kind of letting go of that image of myself that would make everyone around me happy and just letting myself be who I want to be. So like I have pictures of myself like crying from the results, but I remember this like underlying relief that I didn't pass. But the crying was just like letting go of that need to be someone for other people to respect and love me and see the value that I have to bring the world. And my dad was really upset about it. We didn't really talk for a few months, which was really hard, but it gave me some freedom to kind of just be like, okay, fuck it. What do I have to lose? Let me figure out what I want to do. And I bought the camera, started making those videos, and I was on a roll. And from there I went to Cbd Medic, and things just started working out. And it was cool because every time I would be successful on the outside, the people around me who were pressuring me to be a lawyer would be like, we knew this is what you have to do. You're amazing. You're awesome. And when I go back into periods where I'm still kind of transitioning or figuring it out, or, you know, doing the work behind the scenes and not getting the external praise, their fears and anxieties start coming out as well. And they're like, I think you're lost. You should have went to law school. And I'm like, okay, we've been through this before. Like, it's going to be okay. We're going to push through this together, guys. It's all good.
Right.
But that's what went on. Yeah.
What made you purchase the camera?
What made me purchase the camera? I had a really good friend who was into video editing, and I really was passionate about getting my opinion about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict out there, because I saw through my studies and my honors program how this issue is presented so black and white and so toxic, really like it is in America today, like us versus them. And I have the empathy superpower, which is what I like to call it, you know, the power to see the other, be the other, experience and feel the pain of the other. And I was still more conservative, so I was able to speak to the crowd that is very against the Palestinians and kind of soften them up. And I really was passionate about it to kind of bridge that gap a little bit, just a little bit, however I felt was the way I could do it. And I met my friend, and he was like, yeah, I'm editing. I want to get experience. I'll help you. So I was blessed. He just was stuck by me and was making videos for me, editing them, videoing me all day long. Decided to buy a camera for myself so we could use. And we both weren't making $1. We were really like living on nothing for a few months. And these videos were going off the charts, like 800,000 views, 1 million views, prime minister posting them like crazy. I was like on the cover of like Israel's biggest newspaper. There was like a spread, like a 3-page spread of me on like the biggest Jewish holiday. It was pretty cool. Like I was up there. And then I transitioned into Cbd Medic because I actually left it when it was at its peak, the political video thing, because I realized that I'm actually contributing to the problem I was trying to solve by trying to make amends between these two sides. And I said, you know, I'm going to always be proud of being Israeli and being in the army, and I will always defend what I believe is true about what's going on here. But I think by being a light in the world and doing what I genuinely love to do, making people happy and having them associate me with Israel is being an ambassador to Israel. Like Gal Gadot doesn't have to start talking about the politics for you to have a more positive image of Israel just by having a positive image of her as an Israeli. And I'd rather do that indirectly than try to get into the nitty gritty of it, because I was getting messages and conflict all day long. Like I was carrying this conflict with me, and it was not my vibe. I felt like my intentions were not aligned anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
And if there's one thing, I don't know why, even growing up, you know, when we went to war in the Middle East, if there's one thing that I wish I could have spent more time learning and understanding, it would be why the Middle East and the differences of Israel and you know, the Palestinians and like the culture and why the fighting happens. That would probably be one. But I've been so just intrigued by it, like even reading the Bhagavad Gita and like trying to understand, you know, just the beliefs of Middle Eastern culture. I think it's just so intriguing. There's just so many differences, and it's just like where America is right now. Like we just don't like somebody else just because they have a thought or we think something, and it's just crazy to see how that just unfolds all across the world.
In Israel, it's a little bit more intense because in America, and I hope it doesn't get to this place, like on both sides, a lot of people die on both sides, and people who don't deserve to die, and that causes a huge rippling effect of like collective trauma. And I think that Israeli society, you know, I didn't experience life as a Palestinian, but I'm sure it's equally the same way. We have this collective post-traumatic experience that we're we hold on to together. And it's really hard to build that trust when you've been wronged on that level for so many times, and it's both sides. Of course, like both sides will argue the opposite about different things, but I really think we're all victims of this conflict. Like there is no winner or lose. Like we're not, you know, I don't see an innocent Palestinian girl my age on the other side of the fence as my enemy. Like right. She and I are the same.
Yeah.
Our leaders, I wouldn't call them equal, but we are equal. And that's something that people have a really hard time making that distinction.
It's those samskaras that you have that help dictate how you think or how you believe, you know, about the world or the other person. And if you just took the time to get to know who they are and what it is that they believe in, you know that they're more concept. Like you than they're not.
We're all so the same. It's actually laughable.
It really is. And I think, you know, it's like how many people are walking on there when you're spiritual, how many people are walking the earth at you know, one time. It's like, there's one person because we're all the same. We are all one.
We are all one.
So these videos you were doing, so you taught yourself obviously how to edit and how to film, and you obviously had something that continued to go viral and something that, were you making money off of them?
No, zero.
So it's just like,
but
wow.
I felt really fulfilled. Yeah. I felt so fulfilled though.
All right. So you got picked up by Cbd Medic because of how good of a job you're doing with the videos and what it is. So then you went and did that. Obviously we know the story about that. You did that for how many, a couple months, or it was like a year, right?
Almost 2 years, almost right. 2 years. Yeah. It was awesome.
And then you left, and then talk about what you did after Cbd Medic.
Yeah. So I left Cbd Medic, and I always had this passion for personal development, like loved watching TED Talks in high school before they were cool. Okay. Like when no one knew what a TED Talk was, I was like, this thing is so awesome. People teaching me things about life. Like I was mind blown. And so I was doing that, and I was always obsessed with it, but I had this like shame around the personal development sphere that I kind of adopted from my dad, who thinks this is a sack of bullshit, everything I'm doing these days. Not everything I'm doing these days, but the entire sphere and genre of personal development, anything to do with psychology. He's just very old school and doesn't see what I'm talking about at all. And so I kind of had this shame around it, and I would suppress it, and I would find other ways to let it out. Finished at Cbd Medic, didn't know what I was going to do. I actually liked the idea of not picking something to do next. A lot of people are like, choose your backup, you know, if you're going to leave your job. And I was like, I actually want to see what will happen when I kind of release that fear and step into the unknown fully and see what will come out of me. So I was in that, and I got offered to work as the personal assistant to the lead actor of Fauda, if you know what Fauda is, on Netflix. It's like a really famous Israeli Palestinian Netflix series. And I was working on a Netflix series for 3 months with him. He was the lead actor and the writer. And I was with him for 3 months, and Corona or COVID ended that prematurely. So I said, okay, cool. Now I'm in lockdown. I'm not doing that anymore. I'm just going to go for the personal development thing. I have nothing to lose. I have nowhere to work. I have nothing. No one's going to ask me what I'm doing in life right now. And it kind of gave me this freedom to just do what I want. So I started a blog, started writing, started getting more comfortable sharing my beliefs and being open about wanting to be a figure in personal development and helping people. And until now, like I'm still facing this inner resistance because of the programming that I have, you know, of this is bullshit. What are you talking about? Like, go get a real job. No one believes in this stuff. But with time, you know, my voice is growing and those limiting beliefs start to shrink, especially now when I'm now a mindset coach. I help people. I have like between 15 to 20 clients since I started, and it's awesome. I really see how much I have acquired, the tools I have, what I have to offer. And it's just been amazing. Super. It feels like I'm on the right path. Like I'm going in the right direction.
Yeah. A couple things I want to address. What's been incredible to watch and to witness is, you know, obviously following you and just seeing, and I mean this in the utmost positive way, is like you've tried a lot of things, right? Like I think you even put a post up of like, you tried starting like a vegan food subscription, like where you were cooking, like you actually were cooking meals for people and delivering it to them. You started the jars, right? Like the journal jars or comment jars. And I think something that's really interesting that has been fun is you ask a lot of, I don't want to say triggering questions, but you ask a lot of questions that get you.
Polls are fire. Come on.
So where like you post on your story, like questions that are, either yes or no, or this or that. And, it gets you to think about your belief, what you're doing, like your thoughts, like, and it's been really great to watch because you've failed forward. And I don't even want to call like starting a vegan subscription, like food company, if you will. And like that is a failure. Like it looked like it was a lot of fun when you were doing it, when you guys were cooking some stuff, but you've talked about things that you've tried that just didn't work out. And there's nothing wrong about that.
No shame. I will say that I kind of gained an insight recently that I have tried a lot of things, and I did try the vegan thing. It was more of like a side hustle. Let's make money and make these like vegan picnic kits to sell in Tel Aviv, and awesome, another income. Great. I realized when I wanted to actually step into coaching that I had a really big fear of failing publicly when it came to coaching, because that was something that was really important to me to succeed in. It was something that really spoke to my truth, or at least for what I know of it as of now. And that was really scary to me. And I was like, wow, this is unfamiliar. This fear of like doing something and falling flat on my face. I do it all the time. I'm not afraid of failing, but I realized I'm not afraid of failing of things that I don't pride myself in, that I don't attach to my identity. I never claimed to be a chef. I never claimed to be this vegan influencer. So it was like, I could fail at this. Like, what does that say about me? Like, oh, I could fail at this. Like, it's fine. It's just a silly thing. It's kind of like when girls dress in like very baggy or very, like, they don't make an effort because it's like, it's easier because now you're not going to be able to say, well, she doesn't look nice. It's like, I didn't try. So it's this like armor that I had, that I was doing things that I wasn't fully into because it helped me, detach from the outcome. But now that I'm doing the coaching thing, I realized, whoa, like putting myself out there and saying I'm starting this is way scarier. And I realized it was because I'm more attached to this, as it speaks more to my truth. I pride myself in what it takes to be a good coach. And if I were to fail at that, then it's like, what would that say about me? And what does that say about the things that I think I'm good at? So that's a lot scarier. Obviously, I still took the leap and I'm still doing it. I'm still talking about it and posting about it. And so far it's going well. Hopefully I won't have to confront that, because I think I won't. I think I'm more invested than I was in those other things. I had like one leg in those projects, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I was like, okay with failing. I'm like, yeah, it's okay. It's fine.
Yeah. I think in that one of those posts you said, being a vegan cook is really hard.
Oh my God. It's like, wow, you have to really like being in the kitchen to like do that. Like it's no joke.
Yeah.
Being any type of cook, cooking, like you think like I had like 10, 15, 20 orders. Like I was like, yeah, I can do it. Like I was slaving in the kitchen. Like I was sweating. My back was hurting. Like I was like, damn, this is work.
Yeah.
This is no joke.
And then I guess the other point that I wanted to make is it's crazy to think the negative thought patterns that you have about like, and I hate the word coach, and we've had conversations about this before. Like I just hate the word coach, but
me too.
Being somebody of influence, I think you're like, who am I? Like, why are people going to listen to me? Like, why are my experiences or what I have to bring to the table? And it's so surprising when you start to, obviously we are all one. We all have our traumas. We all have things that happen to us, whether it was before birth, after birth, during our childhood. We all have these incidents that take us on a path that, until we start to unwind the trauma and unwind why we trigger and unwind how our ego shows up and really silence that, each of us could be a development coach or, somebody that speaks about it, because everyone has similar traumas that could be spoken to in such a roundabout way. So I think we all are, kind of like the wounded healers.
For sure. I'm all about that. I think that, I did do this like online course to just do it for the sake of it. But I realized like this course isn't teaching me anything that my life experience has taught me. And I don't believe in this structure. And this isn't the way I would want someone to walk me through these issues. And I'm not in any way disrespecting or bashing, the coaching industry in the way that people are doing courses. And I think that it's great. The more healers out there, the better. I'm all for it. But I really tried to create from scratch, and I'm trying to create from scratch my own method that would have spoken to me most in the moments I needed it most, and make it feel as personalized and not cliche as possible. Right. Because I would be very hesitant to hire a coach in the past. Today I have coaches for other things that I need help with, and they're not mindset related. They're more like social media coach and things like that to help me, stay on track and stay motivated. But I just think that my ideal client is someone like me who would be like, this seems really salesy and doesn't feel like you really care about me. And I really care about each and every person I talk to. And not one of their experiences is similar. All 15, all 20, it's like they're all in a different program because it's based on their personal needs. Some people I have doing journaling prompts once a day, texting them, showing it to me. Some people I have just, doing affirmations and other things that speak to them. I have other people who I talk to once every 2 weeks. Some people I talk to twice a week. It's very different. It depends on the person. And I really love being that type of coach and redefining what a coach means to me and what kind of coach I would like to hire for myself.
So I can think back.
It's really like weird these days. Like everyone's a coach and everything's like, just one thing that I just can't with the whole, like, invest the money you don't have. Because if you don't believe in yourself, like that bullying, that like feeling of like personal attack. Like if you're not going to like go get a loan on your credit card and like to do this, and that means you don't really believe in yourself. And that means your problem is even bigger than you thought it was. It's like, whoa, like where is the compassion, bro? Like I'm all about self-compassion. That is the thing that is at the center of my coaching, is that I'm going to push you to do your best, but I'm going to teach you how to be so nice to yourself when you don't. And that's what I'm about. Like, I'm not about the self-deprecating, be mad at yourself, you don't care about yourself enough thing. That just blows my mind. Every time I see it, I'm like, what is this? Like, why?
Yeah, because most people don't have compassion for themselves. They have compassion for others, but they don't have it for themselves.
No.
So I can think back to obviously what started me on this self-development journey that I've been on. Was yours the Army, or was it a book? What was it that kind of kicked it in gear for you?
You asked a good question, Patrick. You don't even know how good the question is, because I really don't talk about this, because it usually comes from the place that hurts the most. And I think like the little, not the little, but like the traumas that are kind of spread out that aren't like one experience force you to always like look for a way to survive and grow out of them. And yeah, that was like since childhood, I didn't have an easy family life. And that was something that I took with me always, because it was a form of survival. But I don't know if you remember when we met, I had a boyfriend who was blind. And he and I had a really complicated relationship, as you can imagine, but it wasn't for the reasons people thought it was. It's like, you see a couple where there's an abled person and a disabled person, and you make a lot of assumptions. And I would get that. I would hear it from people saying like, what? He's blind? Like, are you sure? Like, are you okay? Like, you can be with someone else? Like, like, you're so beautiful. Like, you don't need this. Like, really interesting to see how people's minds work when they're faced with something that's so unfamiliar to them. It taught me a lot about people. And the relationship was really, really interesting. And he was injured in the Army. He lost his eyesight in a really traumatic experience in the age of like 24, I think. And he was 27 when we met. So he was only 3 years blind. And you can imagine how much internal shit you're left with after an experience like that. But he was very into proving to everyone that he is above his injury. And he became, like I had mentioned then, a triathlete. He does CrossFit. He's an Olympic rower. Like, he's really on a level when it comes to his physical ability. But when it came to the internal work, it was something that he didn't really want to confront as much. And as someone who's super vulnerable and open, I was very adamant about opening that up and, you know, him being vulnerable with me. And it was just a clash. It just didn't work. Another level of the complication of the relationship was that I attached my worth to having a blind boyfriend. Like, I was always bullied for being the rich girl at school. I went to a charter school because I loved musical theater, but I had money and most of the people in my school didn't. So I was always made fun of for being superficial because I had a nice car, because I had money. And I really wanted to, like, prove to the world that I'm this good person. And I really did fall in love with him. And I started as his personal assistant. We really fell in love. It was real. But a part of me was very eager to tell people. It was very egoic, the entire relationship I had with him in my mind. I was like, hi, my name's Taylor. By the way, I have a blind boyfriend. Hey, my name's Taylor. Did you know I have a blind boyfriend? Oh, this is my blind boyfriend. Like, I really wanted to make it part of who I am so that I can prove to people, hey, I'm a good person. I'm really not superficial. I'm super deep. Like, and I'm sure that also affected him in many ways because he's trying to be treated as a human. And I'm treating him as a blind person, even though I'm treating him as a blind person in a positive way. Like, oh, look how cool, he's blind. He wanted to be treated like an abled person, like equal. And it created problems. And he actually ended up cheating on me. And it was super traumatic for me for so many reasons, because I didn't like find out so easily. It was like 8 months of back and forth of me trying to find out the truth. I was really codependent. He paid for most of my life. Like, I had no friends. I kind of abandoned everything and, like, went all in the relationship. I really felt like my sense of worth was the fact that I was with him. So that was a whole nother part that felt really scary about it ending. And I never suffered more, actually, than the breakup and how it ended. It was super traumatic. And he got married like a month later, and it was public. It was on the news. It was in the newspapers. So it was really, really hurtful. And it really revealed a lot of pain that I had that was just amplified through this relationship. And I had to do a lot of work to get out of that. Like, that's when I started journaling, because I just felt lost in my thoughts. I had to let it out. So when I started meditating, because I had panic attacks for the first time, it was the first time I went to therapy, because I felt like I need someone to get me out of this. Like, that experience really took me to my lowest low and forced me to find a way out of that. So that's what happened. That's what really was like. And when I got to the other side, like always, you're like, whoa, damn, I could do that. Like, I can get myself out of that hole. And you just want to share that with as many people as possible, because you know how helpless and how lost you feel when you're there. And when you're out, you're like, oh my God, how many people are there right now? Like, how can I help them? I gotta go save them all. Like,
how grateful are you for that experience?
So grateful. I was just saying that to my client today, who I'm helping through a really difficult breakup, telling her how she doesn't believe me, but I told her she'll be grateful for this one day. And it's like, I remember being like, there's no way, Oprah, like, listening to my podcast, like, there's no way. And like,
isn't that crazy? When you're stuck in the mud, you just can't see through, and you're just so like blinders on, like no advice can help. Yes. And you're just
full resistance mode,
feeling sorry for yourself. And then when you get through it and you have the breakthrough, you look back and you're like, I am such a phoenix rising from the ashes now. Like, how incredible that experience defined me and set me on a path that I never thought I could have gone on. And I'm so grateful for that path that I'm on now, because look at all these new experiences I'm having, and look at what I was able to accomplish and do.
And look at all the people I'm able to help that I can relate to. And just, you know, you realize that even if in those moments you can't find the light, you can be aware of the resistance, like resisting the reality. You know, as soon as you recognize that you're resisting reality, you know you're doing something wrong, because you're just adding suffering. Whatever the circumstances are, it'll be hard and it sucks, and you can be sad and you can be angry and you can be hurt, But as soon as you add that layer of like resisting reality and wanting things to look different, or you want it to be different, you're increasing, you're maximizing your suffering, because you're just not letting yourself accept it. Even if it's hard, accept it for what it is. Don't try to make it something that it's not. That's where it becomes very hard to get you out of it. You're like, but I wanted to be together. Or like, but why did this happen?
Right.
Resistance is just terrible, but it's amazing. And I said it today to my client as well. You get to a point where you even have compassion for the person who hurt you. You start with it, anger, and you hate them. And then you somehow find a way to see where you actually had a part in the situation. Before, it was all about, he cheated on me, I'm a victim. And when I grew out of it, I started to realize where I played into that, where I treated him as less equal, where I contributed to not being fully present as myself in the relationship. And I would never have seen that if I didn't do the work to look in the mirror, ask myself those things. And now I see it's just two people doing their best. Weren't meant to be together. Shit hit the fan, and they both went on to better places and grew from it. But before, it was very personal. It was very, I'm the victim. He's the worst. He sucks. He's a terrible person. Very easy to go down that route. But
oh yeah, it's the easiest to go down. What was the hardest thing for you to get over post that breakup? Was it the fact that, one, he cheated on you? Was it you fed into that like, he's blind and this is my boyfriend? Like, what was the hardest? Yeah, what was the hardest thing for you to shed, and what was the biggest part of your breakthrough? Because I'm sure post the breakup, obviously, one, if it's all over the place and it's right in front of you, like, and for him to get married so quickly, you're just going down the wormhole of, I wasn't good enough. Oh my God, how long was he cheating on me for? But then there's there's also the looking at yourself in the mirror going, well, I did this because I introduced him as like my blind boyfriend to everyone. So like, how horrible of a person am I? So what was the hardest thing for you to get over?
Right. Yeah, it's amazing how you can see how there were so many layers of suffering here. It's like the I'm not enough thing, and then it's like, I'm a shitty person. How shitty of me to do this, or how stupid am I to like fall for this, or where was I, or all these things. Like, it's really a lot of noise. I think what hurt me the most. I think that what hurt me the most is what hurts everyone, is that rejection, that feeling of like not being wanted or not being accepted and not being loved. I think that's where you're most hurt. I think we all fear it most because it hurts the most, because it's like you want to feel wanted and accepted. And as soon as someone rejects, then it kind of justifies all the reasons you think you're not enough. It kind of makes you feel like, well, if you don't want me, then I know why you don't want me, because I suck and because I'm this and because I'm that. And it's like, you start to list all these things, like you were ready. You were like, I know. Like, I've been telling myself these things my whole life. Like, right. I'm surprised you wanted me.
I got this. I know the answer.
Yeah, you're like, I'm surprised you liked me for as long as you did. Thanks for admitting it. Now, let me tell you, like, it's really like that. So I think it was that. It was just that initial feeling of like gut wrenching, like I'm not wanted. And having it make, well, at the time, it felt like, what does that say about who I am? And like, what don't I have? Like, what's wrong with me? Like, it's that feeling of shit. Like, I really did a lot for this person, even though I didn't know, I didn't have that awareness of where I was wrong in the beginning when it hurt the most. That came way later. So I was very victimized. I felt like a victim of this terrible person just rejecting me, closing his door on me, and moving on to bigger, better things, and it not phasing him. That also is really painful. And I hear that in my clients as well, who are going through breakups, where it's like, he doesn't care. Like, that whole narrative of like, he doesn't care and I'm suffering here and he doesn't care. That was the hardest for me. But with time, obviously, my biggest breakthrough was, that I have compassion, because people who don't look inward and aren't willing to reveal, themselves or to be open and honest. He wasn't able to have open and honest conversations with me. They're living in a state of fear, and I live from love, and it's harder and it hurts, and I do my best, but I have compassion for him, because I feel like I wouldn't trade places with him in a million years. And I told him that too. Like, I would never trade places. And I know that everything that he hurt me from, that we came from a place where he's hurting himself. Mm-hmm. And that's the breakthrough, where it's like the person who hurts you the most, you can still have love and compassion for that person. It's the same thing when I look at my parents, who made a lot of mistakes and did a lot of things that from the outside people would say, how can you be so close to your parents? How can you be so loving to them if they did blah, blah, blah? And it's like, how can you not? Like, they didn't try to do, they didn't want to do this. Like, they weren't like, let's see how we can traumatize our kids and make them suffer. Like, that wasn't their intention. So it really just taught me to reach for that level of compassion earlier. When someone triggers me or makes me mad or hurts me, I know it's possible now, because I went from very hurt from him, very angry, to very compassionate and accepting and loving of him. So we're not in touch, but from afar. And it just taught me that. It taught me that I can really practice love and compassion on anyone, on people who hurt me, my biggest enemies, other side of the political spectrum, other side of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
Yeah. When you first met him, were you coming to the relationship with like a empty cup, asking for it to be filled? And do you think that the relationship played off of, he needed obviously his cup to be filled from a able-bodied perspective, and you needed yours as a value, and that you were more than this, materialistic person?
Mine came from, I had failed the LSAT, or I was really struggling with that. And I heard about him, and my class, my honors program, he got into that program, and they were looking for someone who would work as his assistant. And I was like, well, while I wait for my LSAT, I knew I didn't do that well. I need to distract myself. Like, and I was like, the most naive way possible, this will be my way of like giving back, helping someone. I said, how do you heal yourself? The best way to heal yourself is by helping, like coming out of yourself and serving others. It's like ABC. So I did it from that place. I was like, okay, I'm gonna go volunteer, help this blind guy, like get money, feel good about myself, distract myself, gain some perspective about life. I really saw it as that, like the way you would feel if I told you now you're gonna go help someone who, is paralyzed, and you're gonna go feed him and help him every day. You'd be like, wow, this is a good opportunity to kind of be grateful for what I have. And I went. And I think we just kind of needed each other, like you said, in that moment. Like, I needed him for that feeling of like what I am and who I failed. I found out I failed Elsa. My dad was very upset, and I was in his presence, and he really helped me as well through it. So he was healing me, and I was healing him. And then it kind of blew up in our face. No. Yeah. Not pun intended, but yeah, it just didn't go well. It was not great.
So now you have a new relationship.
The best kind.
And now, how much did that teach you about how you needed to show up?
Woo. I always knew how I needed to show up. I didn't know that it would be received and reciprocated on this level. And that is just such an amazing experience. I was just telling another client of mine today that, when they say relationships are supposed to make you better and make you a better person, a lot of people think that their shitty boyfriend or girlfriend who's criticizing them all the time and judging them all the time is making them a better person. They'll just sign it off as like, he's helping me be a better person. Like, it's okay that he's judging me. That's not what it is. What it is they create this safe space for you to be all of you, and they accept you for everything that you are. So you don't have to live from this fear of them not wanting you. If you reveal those sides of you, and you can work on those things, you have the space to work on yourself without this fear of the person leaving you, because they're so loving and so accepting and so non-judgmental. That is why you can grow so much in a relationship, because someone is there saying, hey, I love you even when you fuck up. I love you even when you're having a bad day. Like, you can work on this. You don't have to fear me leaving when you're in a bad place. I can lay in bed for a week depressed, and it doesn't even cross my mind that I'm being judged or that I'll be left for showing those sides of me. And that space that I have to kind of not be distracted by that fear of rejection lets me work on myself. Lets me really focus on, okay, how do I get myself out of this? And obviously with my partner, talking about it, figuring it out, but I never feel that pressure to be better. I feel accepted. Yeah.
Yeah. That fear of abandonment is a motherfucker.
Ooh. Ooh. Tell me about it. Literally, he goes to the market. I'm like, where are you going? I'm like, you didn't give me a warning. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, you're supposed to tell me like 10 minutes before at least.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about, Taylor as a coach. What is it that you're doing? Who are you working with? And what's the end result that you're looking for? What's the findings that you're looking to kind of come from this experience that you're having?
Yeah. So I'm all about listening to your inner voice, taking steps towards your truth. I really took my boyfriend, for example. This is where it started. My boyfriend was lost when it comes to his career. No, he really was lost. He's great. He's awesome. But he felt like he was in the startup business world. I could tell he has no spark, no light, no energy, no excitement. I was like, bro, I don't care if you go deliver food or you don't make $1. I want you to do what you love. Which is very rare for a woman to say to a man, to say, listen, I don't care if you provide for me. And this doesn't come from a place where I'm being provided for by someone else. I'm not, like, at all. I just know that in the long term, I would rather have a spouse who works and does something he loves and wakes up every morning loving life than someone who feels like he's busting his ass to make me happy monetarily. Much rather him wake up energized to go work as a school teacher any day. So I'm like, let's figure this out together. Let's break this down. And I was like coaching him for like a few months. And he went from saying he wants to have like a business and working in startups to now studying hypnotherapy. And he's going to be a hypnotherapist. And he's loving every second of it. Spent a big chunk of his savings on a course, and he's going to be amazing at it. He's so passionate, and he's going to be a rock star. But it's like, we went through this whole process of going from being just like, what do you mean love what I do? You know what I mean? To be like, whoa, how could I ever settle for less than this feeling? So watching that happen was amazing. And I was like, I got to help people do this. Like, at least, find a way to help people do this. And today I have a bunch of clients that are so different. Some, like I said, are going through really hard breakups. Some are working on breaking the habit of procrastination, which is way deeper than time management and being lazy or not lazy, as most of us know. And others are looking to work on limiting beliefs in their relationships. Some people need help with dating, others with their career. I have people who are going through very traumatic experiences and trying to kind of have a healthy mindset going through them. It's very broad. I just started recently, but I'm in like week 6 out of 12. That's like the farthest I've gone with someone. And I already see with the people who I've been 5-6 weeks with, huge breakthroughs, telling me like, whoa, I feel like I'm experiencing life. And you're like in my head telling me what would Taylor say? And like, I see how things play out differently when I think like you. So that's just amazing. I'm all about, like I said, I started with saying, stepping towards your truth. It's not about finding your passion as this one thing that you're supposed to do in life, but just saying, does this thing feel like one step closer or one step farther from where I'm supposed to really be? And the coaching feels like one step closer. Do I think it's the end of my story? This is what I'm going to be, a mindset coach? Cannot tell you that I think that's what's happening here. I think it's definitely a way for me to learn more about how I can help people and expand from there. If it'll be through books, through products, through online courses, whatever it'll be. This is just a more hands-on experience to gain knowledge from other perspectives and how it matches with mine, how theirs match with mine. So that's where we're at.
It's like what we were talking about before with the surrender experiment. It's just like, the universe will put in front of you what you're ready for, but you have to surrender and not force for something to happen. Like Michael Singer, was, a spiritual guru that just meditated all time of the day. And, then he became a CEO of a computer company because he taught himself how to code, because he bought a computer in a Radio Shack or some like electronic store in Florida. So
such an awesome guy.
Right. It's incredible. So where do you see it going? Do you see it evolving? Do you see it being an online course? Do you see that this is just something that you're enjoying for the interim? Do you want this to continue?
I see in the short term, I want to do online courses. I love group teaching. I used to teach international law to groups of like 30, 40 students, and I felt most alive in front of the students, like not because of the content, just because of that feeling of like taking people from feeling like they don't know shit to like, I can get an A on this test. Like, I just love it. And that and the soldiers, I just love a group setting. I love that energy, even if it's on Zoom.
Flow state.
Because of COVID. Yeah. I am like the master of flow state, by the way. That's like, if I could tell you my superpower, flow. I'm just like, okay, we're changing plans, guys. Like, pack it up. Let's go. I'm really good at not attaching. And I think it's because I attach myself to so many things that hurt me in the past. It's just like you at certain points, like you have to be kind of like not with us to realize you should probably stop doing that, Taylor. Like I was holding on to things for my life. So courses for sure in the short term. I think in the long term, I really try not to decide in advance. Because I really like to be as open-minded as possible. And if I end up like Michael Singer going from being a spiritual guru to a computer programmer, it will be easier if I didn't make a plan. I mean, I didn't attach myself to a vision. Right. Like I have a plan, right? I have a short-term plan, a long-term plan, how this thing can grow, but I'm so fluid about it. I really let it mold as we go.
Yeah. I was in a course this morning with a close friend of mine, Sharif. He runs a community called Raleigh Raw, and it's Raw U. And he was like, you save up, you have this idea, like you want a BMW. So you spend all the, 6, 7, 8 months, saving and saving and saving. And then on your way to go get the BMW, you see a Range Rover and you're like, damn, that's a dope Range Rover. Don't attach yourself to the BMW. Just attach yourself to the idea of getting something new that you are working towards. And whether it's a BMW or a Range Rover, be okay with the outcome. Don't be upset because
don't limit yourself by defining shit.
Right.
Like I'm realizing that like I had not an unhealthy relationship to money and like earning money. And now I'm way more into the, like, I want money and I want to be able to buy myself this, and I want to be able to afford this. I want to be able to travel and this and that. So those are my goals. Like, and I will do what I need to get there, but I don't want to decide what position I'll have to be in to get that, because I'm open to being anything. Like, if you ask me, like, what is the goal? Like, I'm all about being the, like, new Oprah. It's fine. And I have no shame saying it. Like, and when I say this to people, they look at me like laughing, or they'll look at me like, what are you talking about? I'm like, no, I really think I can be the next Oprah. I have no doubt. But if I end up a school teacher who feels like the Oprah of her class, I'm good with that too.
Right. It's the same result, it's just a different experience. Different
form, but I'll accept it. I won't resist it. I won't be like, I really wanted to be famous and a billionaire. I'll be like, do I feel like Oprah?
Right.
Okay, here we are.
As long as I feel great about it. And plus, money is just energy that's flowing from one to the next. And so it's like, don't be upset just because you're not holding on to that energy for that moment. It's free flowing. Let it go.
All about that.
Yeah. So you're currently in quarantine, which is crazy. Yes. And you talked a little bit about, you like left LA abruptly. So you were supposed to be in LA for another month. Now you're in Tel Aviv, living in an Airbnb, which you never even planned for. Your apartment is like rented out. Yeah. But you're just like, you're letting go, and you're just allowing yourself to kind of simply just be through this experience. So tell me how that unraveled, and how like crazy traumatic that probably was, where you had to immediately leave and go from LA to Tel Aviv and get an Airbnb, and you're in this 14-day quarantine. And like, if you watch some of your stories, like there's some days where you're like, Taylor's going bananas today.
I'm off the wall. Today I was off the wall. I was like, okay, I'd say we're losing it, guys. That's funny. I just think that when you learn to not resist reality, like I said, like when things happen that are abrupt, it can be super traumatic depending on how attached you were to what was happening, and if you're really committed to this flow state, then when those things happen, you're not that surprised. And that's how it was. It was like, okay, who said it was supposed to be different? Who said this was supposed to be, who said I was supposed to be here another month? Why? Because my ticket said I was supposed to be here another month? Who said I was supposed to live today? Like, it gets really like a high level, and people are like, okay, come on, Taylor. I'm like, but it is like, it's so many things that are not predictable, and we pretend like we have this false illusion that we're in control of everything and we can predict so much. It's like, you can't really predict anything. So whatever happened. I had to leave, and I decided to leave. It wasn't like I was forced to leave. I decided to leave abruptly, and I was like, okay, when you look for solutions. Solutions reveal themselves. You find them. Okay. If I were to be like, well, I can't leave because where am I going to live? Because my apartment's rented, I'd still be in LA right now. Right. But we're like, okay, let's figure it out. And we talked to friends, and we had a friend who has an Airbnb. He's obviously having a hard time renting it because of COVID, gave us a good price. We're like, awesome, cool. Let's make it happen. Packed our stuff, moved, flew, got here, been in this basement apartment, which is nice, like for the last 9 days. I haven't even fully comprehended that I'm in Israel, because it's so weird to like land in another country and go straight into quarantine. It's like, you're just like,
you can't leave your apartment at all, right?
No, zero. Like I'm not allowed to see people. Like I have to be in here.
And so like, you have like groceries delivered to you?
Delivered, friends come drop off stuff. And it's pretty intense. It's crazy. I don't even realize like that I'm in Israel yet until I'll be able to probably like leave and see where I am.
Yeah.
So here I am. And yeah, it's just about, letting it flow. And I just started getting momentum with the coaching. So I was like really committed to prioritizing just keeping that momentum, which at first was scary, obviously, because I'm just starting, and then the jet lag and the time differences. So I was really into like focusing on that and getting the ball still rolling. So it was just about like focusing on having the ball continue to roll, which is super hard. Like I was telling my boyfriend, it feels like I need maximum energy to do minimum. And sometimes that's the situation. Like you're giving maximum to do the minimum. And, sometimes we're doing the minimum and we're beating ourselves up for it. But sometimes that's the most we can do, is to just keep the ball rolling. Like, I'm sure there are days where you're like, oh, I don't want to do this podcast, or I don't feel like editing this, and it's okay, but just do the minimum, like maximum energy to do the minimum and keep the momentum. So that's something that I'm learning to do here. And I'm saying, it's not the best Wi-Fi, and it's not the best, it's not my house, and I don't have all my shit, but this is what matters right now. And I'm going to keep the ball rolling and focus on what's important, and let all the rest is temporary. I'll be back in my apartment in no time, I'm sure. And it'll feel like I never was in that other apartment.
Yeah. So back to normal soon, huh?
Yeah. Just be grateful. I'm so grateful that I found this and I have this opportunity to stay here, and everything's great. Everything's lovely, especially all the COVID stuff, all the inconveniences. As long as you can start by being grateful that you don't have it, I guess that's a great place to start. I'm happy to be in quarantine and not in a hospital. So
yeah, what a motherfucker when the teacher entered the room and that teacher's name was COVID, and was to teach us like plans don't matter.
None of them do.
Right.
COVID was just a teacher for everyone. That's it. And some people suffered more than others because they needed some people do the work, and they were like, okay, I'm ready for things like this. And some people were not. And we saw it, and it's collective growing no matter what. It's cool.
Well, I am so honored that you were on. It's been such a great conversation. I love how our paths have crossed and then back again, crossing again. It's been such an incredible experience to just be a friend, even from afar, and just to watch you grow and to watch you kind of go through experiences and to come out kind of like, the phoenix rising from the ashes. So I give a lot of credit to you and the work that you've been doing. And I'm honored that you were here and that we were able to have these conversations, and hopefully you were able to gain a lot of insight. A lot of people that I have on the podcast are like, oh my God, I feel so great. Like I never thought about these things, and I never thought about how incredible it was to experience.
I'm really energized. It's like 10:30 p.m. I'm like, let's go.
Yeah.
Like quarantine. Like
I can't do anything, but let's go.
I know, but let's go. You'll see on my stories, I'll be like dancing in the apartment in like 5 minutes. Don't worry.
Yeah. So why don't you tell all the listeners where they can find you and where your wonderful stories are, because that's where it is. Like that's where the magic happens.
It is, right? Oh, that's how I feel. I'm like, why do not more people watch this? But anyway, so I'm like, I need more numbers for these polls. Like I get to like 1,000 views, which is cool. And on those polls, I'm like, wow, this is like data. This is like real shit, because a lot of people answer them. But I wish there were more. I'm going to get more eventually. So my Instagram handle is @lifebytaylor. Plain and simple as it is. I'm still shocked that handle was available to me, but I guess it was meant to be. So Life by Taylor, and that's where you can really find me most. That's where I put most of my time and energy these days. And if I invest in another platform or outlet, then I'm sure you'll find out through there. So
Yeah.
That's the place. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate everyone listening in. This has been such a great experience. Make sure you go follow Life by Taylor. You will not be disappointed. Her insight and just everything that she brings to the table. Make Earth great again.
Yes.
Let's do it, guys. Come on. If you want to watch, you have a couple more days left of quarantine to watch her dancing.
Oh yeah. I dance even not in quarantine, but these ones are like, oh, all over. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate everyone tuning in. Thanks so much for listening for another episode of Just a Reporting Podcast. Thank you so much. Peace.